All right, we are live. I'm going to take just a moment to see how many of you want to jump in here and join us live today. But I'm really excited for today's guest because I think she speaks a lot of the same language as I do when it comes to data. And I'm super excited about today's topic of conversation, which is data driven culture engaging modern audiences. And so part of this introduction is going to include a question for my audience. And I know that you guys are used to these questions. If you are used to these questions or you want to speak to us, if you have comments about what we're talking about today, I want you to know the chat is open and we can see you. So please make sure to stop by, say hi. Please message us in the chat anything that's relevant to the conversation. We want to hear from you today. The thing I want to hear the most right now is, what is your biggest challenge in your organization or that your organization faces when trying to understand or use data to connect with your audiences? So that's your opening question for today. I'm hoping you guys will leave some questions and comments here for us so that we can engage with you, and we appreciate you being here. So let's talk about this guest that I've got on the show today. I'm very excited to introduce you to Chloé Grossmann. And before we bring her on stage, let me tell you a little bit about Chloé. She is the area manager for Arenametrix, guiding cultural institutions in implementing effective CRM and digital marketing strategies. If you guys don't know, marketing is something that I love. So I'm really excited to talk to this person because I feel like the luckiest person in the world that I get to interview her today, because these are the things I love to talk about. She helps organizations across 14 countries use Arenametrix CRM suite to gain a 360 view of their visitors, their run targets, and multi-channel campaigns. She's dedicated to boosting attendance, personalizing communication, and improving data management for attractions. Her favorite thing, which is actually my favorite part of every show, is she has a book with her at all times. Her favorite book is Ladies Delight by Zola, about the birth of modern shopping. So she's reading books that are going to help her be better for you, which is I'm a big advocate of that. If you guys have ever been to my house, okay, I don't even want to go there. My husband has been a book collector our entire marriage. I've got a house full of books. Let me just say this before I bring Chloé on stage. When we moved, we did our last move to Colorado, we had to pay for shipping or for moving by weight, and the majority of the weight was books. So I love that that's something that she enjoys, and I'm a big fan of using books to learn about industries that we want to be in, to also learn about who we are and how we can develop ourselves. And we'll have to ask her more about that book. But without further ado, please help me welcome Chloé Grossmann to the show. Chloé, welcome to the show.
Hi, Sondra.
Was that introduction okay? Is there anything you want to add to that?
It was perfect, and I'm so glad you talked about my favorite book in the introduction. So I gave Zola a bit of visibility today.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad. I said we got to talk more about this book. We're a book house, so I meant that we had to pay so much money just to move my husband's book. The last time we moved, because we moved across states, they charge you by weight, and I remember loving it and hating it because I was like, man, these things are heavy. Should we really be carrying them with us? But books are super important. So I'm
Uh,
excited to talk to you today about data.
that's my favorite subject, so I'm excited too.
Well, before we jump into some of the questions that I have for you, tell me and the audience a little bit more about Arenametrix.
So Arenametrix helps attraction enhance their overall visitor experience by using data. So we are a CRM and data marketing platform. We're going to help attractions, theaters, festivals, museum leverage their data and using this data for marketing purpose, and so to create really a strong relationship with their audience.
I
That's
love that.
basically Arenametrix. And we are working with institutions in 15 countries. So we're basically in Europe and in North of America.
Wow. Wow. Well, if you don't mind, can I jump into some questions for you?
Perfect.
Well, and I must say that like what you're talking about, understanding your customers' data is so important, and I think that that is something that not only our industry but businesses in general sometimes miss the mark in terms of understanding what that is, and with that they're missing so many opportunities to engage with their audiences. So I think this is gonna I know this is gonna be a super powerful show. Also, I know in our pre-interview, I have to tell you, Tiffany, who I think she did the pre-interview with you for the show, and she was like, she's so smart. Wait till I have her on the show. So I have to give Tiffany that plug because she did tell me that. She said, Chloe's so smart. You're gonna love talking to her. And I love talking about data. So let's jump into it. When it comes to data-driven marketing and the customer's journey, how can cultural institutions and attractions leverage data to gain a deeper understanding of their audience behavior and preferences? We're going right in.
Yeah, perfect. So first of all, maybe I should explain what does leverage data means, because not everyone is comfortable with this expression. So leveraging data means like exploiting data. For Arenametrix, it means cross-referencing information from like ticketing, donation, marketing campaigns, or social networks. It's really having a better understanding of audience behavior thanks to data. So data is collected at many touch points you have with your contacts. So attraction really create data at like with their interaction with the contacts. They create data because guests, when they interact with your venue, they leave beyond insights that's going to help attractions tailor their experience and maybe boost revenue. Maybe I should give you an example of what data we can collect at what point in your customer journey. So, for instance, when someone purchases a ticket, they're going to say, like, leave information about where they are, where they live, what type of tickets they want to buy. And it's really powerful. And you need to use that after when you send a post purchase email, for instance. Then when they come to the venue, they're going to buy something at the shops or maybe buy lunch, and so they're leaving data again. You also need to be able to gather this data and then use it. At the end of their day, their visit, they're going maybe to answer post-visit feedback, and they're also going to leave a lot of data, and this feedback is going to help the venue improve and also get a better understanding of what the guests are. So all of these data are going to leave behind. You need to use it for future marketing and use it to really be specific. When I say use it in future marketing is segmenting your audience and then tailoring communication according to all of that.
So, if I'm understanding correctly, because I do think, and I think I am, but you tell me, when I mean your customers are leaving data all the time in all these areas when they buy tickets. I know in our online platform, they can list their family members because often they have to in order to get season passes for each individual. So you're learning so much about these people, ages. I mean, is that the type of data we're talking about, or are we talking about trends, or both? Right, like their buying habits,
Mm.
or are we talking about all of it?
Yeah, we're talking about both. We can, you need to collect contacts data, so like a name, a first name, an email address, or a postal address to know where they live. And then you have the transactional data. It's when the ticket was bought, what price, what type of ticket, was it like a family pack or just a one ticket, or was it a pass or a one-day ticket? This is transactional data. And then you have the behavior data and the engagement. Do they open your newsletter? Did they come to your website? This is another type of data. So
Yeah.
you really have different type of data, and you need to use all of it to create a 360 view of your audience and in 360 view of every contact.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting way of looking at it. I'd never heard like the 360 view. But what I like about it is it's the truth, right? It's showing. I mean, I know there's some really creepy data stuff out there too, like you know, where you can see like who's visiting your page and what organizations, even when they haven't engaged with you, and that's also data that can be used. That's what I mean by creepy. It's kind of like stalkerish because there's so much there. But I also think we have to get past that
Mm.
because at the end of the day, if somebody's engaging with you, they're trusting you with this data. And likely they're trusting you with this data because they want to have a relationship with you. Would you agree with that?
Exactly. They give you data. First of all, you always need to respect the law. You can't
Sure.
collect any type of data, and you can't like sell this data. For instance, it's not like you can do that.
Sure.
So all the data you're going to collect is data like you have their consent to collect it, and then you have their consent to use it. So, for instance, you're not going to send newsletter to everyone. You're going to send newsletter to people that consent to receiving newsletter. And yes, so every not every data, but some of the data is actually a declaration from the contact, and some data is just deduction you have. So you need to mix all of that to have the 360 view of your contacts and then use it. And actually, contacts are going to really take something from it, because if you are able to know them and send the right communication, uh, they're going to be happy to receive the nice communication. For instance, you talk about a family and kids that maybe come and buy a ticket for the season. Like, if I know this contact is a mother of 3 kids, I'm not going to send her like information about this promotion we do for people between 25-year-old and 30-year-old. I know it's not what she needs, and I'm not going to overwhelm her or him, overwhelm them with information they don't need.
Yeah, that's fair. And actually, I think that is a nice touch point to have on this conversation is that, if you have this data, then you can segment it out so that people are receiving what's appropriate to them, or maybe not appropriate per se, but what's meant for them based on what you know about them. And we know that people like to be known, people like to be treated like that. I actually was at it's funny because I try to, there's this thing called the golden rule, right? Like treat other people how you would like to be treated. But I heard something interesting. I was at a leadership training, and one of the guys who was coaching us said that in business, it's not actually the golden rule. It's more of the platinum rule: treat other people how they would like to be treated. And I bring this up only because I think it's interesting what you're talking about today with data, and that this allows us to treat people in a way that is good for them.
Mm, exactly. And in this sense, it rings a bell of like a marketing campaign I saw recently, and they were asking to all their database, do you want to receive um, text messages from us, like SMS messages from us? And I had some friends who were like, I don't want to receive text message from institution. And for myself, I'm like, oh yeah, I want to know all the news about my favorite theater and have that directly in my text messages. So we both like answered differently to this campaign, and now I got my SMS and I'm happy about it, and my friend don't and he's happy about it. And it's really like talking to people the way they want to be talked to. Exactly.
Yes. Yes. I love that. Also, I think it's also meeting people where they're at, right? You
Mm,
know, how everybody communicates is very different. And if you know that somebody came in through a text message or that's how they first engaged with you, then that's probably somebody you want a text message, right? Like I'm the same way. I I love text message marketing. I love text message offers, but I know a lot of people who don't care for that. They would much rather have it go to email.
mm,
Now, I've been a CEO of this company for many years. I think I'm in like my 13th or 14th year. If you send me an email, I'm a half the time somebody else is going to read it, and you know what I mean, or my team who helps me get through all the emails I get. So for me to get directly to me, it definitely is a personal text. It's a personal text message, right? but I know that's not the case for everybody. And that kind of leads me to a question that I have about common pitfalls that organizations encounter when implementing data-driven marketing strategies. And if you don't mind sharing us, I know that you're going to share with us some pitfalls, but also how can they be avoided?
Yeah. So in my experience, I saw a lot of pitfall and like mistakes organization do. First of all, when we're talking about data, it's kind of a magic world, and you think like, oh, I had a data driven strategy, everything's going to be fine. So the first mistake is to think it's thinking that data will solve everything on its own. It's a common mistake to believe that, and to believe that simply collecting data is going to answer your problem. In reality, data is worthless in itself. It's worthless without a strategy. So you need to know, and you need to think about why you're collecting data, what type of data you want to collect, to what question data need to shed light on, and how you're going to activate the data. So you have a lot of questions to answer around this data, and you really have to create a strategy. And so my advice will be to set right and clear objectives. For instance, if your objective is to improve loyalty, or if your objective is to make first-time visitor come back, or if to understand why this segment of this visitor is shrinking, it's all really good objectives, but you need to have one and to stick to it and to collect data to answer this challenge. For instance, I used to work with a venue that collects the age of their audience in feedbacks. And so they were asking, are you between 20 or 30 years old, 30 or 40? And it's not useful because they can't do anything with that. It was just like knowing 50% of my audience is above 30 years old. They don't use that. It's just another dashboard, another data they collect, and it's not they can't activate that. So what we did is changing this question to the date of birth. So now they have this really specific age, and they can activate the data by sending a birthday scenario. So every year, when it's your birthday, you're going to receive an happy birthday from your favorite venue, and it's going to create a relationship between the contact and the venue. So it's an example to show the difference between data, which is versus in itself, and data that you can use.
Yes.
I think it's one of the main mistake I saw. Another pitfall is maybe to be working in silos, because many institutions have like a marketing team, a donation team, a communication team, and they don't often work together. And so it results in data that is fragmented and not really exploit. So a tool like Arenametrix really help bringing together around one platform all this data and all the team that really not always talk to each other before. So I think it's like two main pitfalls.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting because if you just look at data like that from a standpoint of, if you're collecting data from your audience that is not necessary,
Mm,
then you're wasting their time and that goodwill, right? Like if you use that data, especially if it doesn't apply to what you need it to apply to, or if it's not helping you move your business forward, it's just a block, and being in ticketing, online ticketing, I will say, like, we know that we've got to get people to the purchase button as quick as possible, have as many or as few roadblocks to get them to that point. And I'm sure you would agree with me, like if I'm filling out a form and there's like all sorts of irrelevant questions or things I'm not interested in sharing at that moment because I don't really know these people yet, it can certainly like make it so that I don't get to the finish line.
yeah, you're just going to close the tab and say like, okay, I'm going to do that later, and then you just never do it. Yeah.
Right. So, data collection can be a roadblock if it's not done well.
Mm,
Right.
exactly.
And so that kind of brings me to like personalization and optimization, because I think that really, what you are also collecting allows you to know your guests, and knowing your guest is as important as them knowing you, right? Like it is super important. Allows you a way to connect with them, to engage with them, to make them feel welcome, to let them know you want them back, whatever that looks like. This, like you said, a special offer for a mother of three. When I get an offer that allows me to, because I'm a mother of three, a full participation of my entire family, I certainly value those at a different level than if somebody had sent me something that said, bring your dog. I have dogs and I love dogs, but, you know, I'm always looking for stuff to do with my kids, and sometimes the dog comes with, but, my priorities might be different than just
Mm.
a dog mom, and that's okay. That's maybe one of those things, that data points that you might collect on people, right? But that leads me to kind of talk about how attractions can use data to personalize the visitor's experience and create more meaningful interactions. And I know that we've covered a little bit on that, but is there any other insights that you can share with us on that? I know that you guys are experts in this.
Yeah, we really work on helping attraction create a relevant customer journey. So the customer journey in like old ways, it's just you have a purchase and then you go to the venue and that's all. Nowadays, the customer journey starts way before the purchase and goes long after the visit. So you need to use all the data you collected in the different data points and I talked about earlier to be able to personalize the customer journey. And personalizing means recognizing the visitors and understanding their expectation to create a bond. So to give you an example of what a customer, like visitor experience and a customer journey means for an attraction, you need before the purchase to be able to communicate the right offer. Like we just talked about it, for you as a mother of three, you need to know what's made for you. So to do that, we're going to use your past habits and your past experience. If I know you came like 2 years ago to my attraction and you buy a family pack and a street ticket for your street kids, I know that you're a mother of three, so I'm going to use this information and send the right information. Then, luckily, you're going to do a purchase and buy a ticket. And after that, I'm going to prepare the visit by proposing to you, knowing you're a mother of three, proposing times, I think, like less frequented to the attraction, like a Zen alert. I have a client doing that, like doing a Zen alert, and every week they send what's going to be the frequentation of the attraction, and is it a good idea to come a Sunday or maybe a Saturday or Wednesday? Like when are you going to have the best experience at the venue? Then so this is before the visit. Then during the visit, I also need to send adapt content. We do multi-channel communication, so notification is a good way to interact with people already on site. For instance, in the customer journey, when someone scans their ticket and just they arrive to the attraction, you can send notification giving advice to what attractions they should do first, what attraction has a long waiting line, and what attraction they can do like easily and just after they arrive. So they have a nice and smooth experience. And then after the visit, you still have to nurturing the relationship over time, and you can send a thank you message and offer like maybe a subscription. And if this person came back like a few times already, make them like a pass holder for the season, something like that. And you really have to prolong the experience so they do and they make this next purchase like right away. That's the customer journey. And every touch point, every time you send a communication, you need to be personalized according to what you know about the contacts.
Yeah,
Basically.
and I mean, not to keep talking about parents, but I will say this: I was an operator of a QZAR laser tag in the late '90s, before like parents would take their kids to these venues and work. And luckily, I was in LA, so it was very progressive in terms of, they were ahead in terms of like trends.
Mm.
One of the things I love about Los Angeles is they're very trend forward. And so, but even back in the late 90s, I had a lot of parents who would come on the slow days, and many of them were celebrities. That's the other thing. I always like to plug that because I got to see a lot of celebrity parents who were coming on, Tuesday early part of the day before the crowds came, or Thursday early part of the day before the crowds came, to allow their kids to be there and for them to have like an experience with them. But also sometimes parents would just be relaxing while the kids were off playing laser tag, and we see that a lot in attractions today. I know my sister is a member of Urban Air, and she's often there working on her computer while he's bouncing around with his friends that he has because there are other parents there. What I love about what you just said, though, is that what if you knew that you could send those moms a message Tuesday morning and say, "Hey, are you looking for something to do today with your kids? You can come over here." And maybe you're already a member, right? One of my sister's favorite, she's a single mom, and one of her favorite things to do is take him to Urban Air, but also every time he goes, as part of their packaging, he gets a pizza and soda.
Mm.
And she loves that because then she doesn't have to cook that night or that day for lunch or whatever's happening there. So I think it's interesting when you talk about personalization because you can help people really understand what they need.
Exactly. And you send them the right information. Like, your mother of three, you're going to come with your car. Is the parking far away from the attraction? Am I going to walk a long time? And if I want to be there for the opening of the gate, do I need to come 10 minutes early or 30 minutes early? You
Yeah.
really need to send all the information that are going to be useful for this person specifically.
Right. Because if you want to interact, and let's say that you sent out a text message today on Tuesday morning and said, "Listen, bring your kids for lunch today. If you're a member, you get your free pizza and soda today," because you know this about them. Now, if you sent that to somebody who's going to be sitting in an office all day, that's not relevant information. So it's very interesting to me, how we can use data today and how it connects us with our audience.
It connects us with our audience, and it's also a way to do some upsell. I'm always thinking about relationship, but also boosting revenue. And personalization in customer journey is also not only offering the right information, and it's also offering the right upsell. And maybe this pizza is not free and I want to sell this piece of pizza, and it's also the good way to do it because I know you're going to come, I know where you are, what you like, and I'm going to sell you this piece of pizza.
Yeah, I love that. And I love this next place. So I'm going to go with questions because I don't know if you know this about me. I work on a project with Chris Martin and Emmanuel Kelly from Outlier, and looking at trends and accessibility and really creating inclusive design for everybody. And one of the things that you said earlier today was you can set expectations for your guests if you understand who they are. And I know that there is some data we can't collect, and if I'm saying this, if this is data I can't collect, but I'm curious if you can help me with this, is if you know that somebody has a disability, or you
Mm.
know that there might be someone who is neurodivergent or um, autism. I think I've had other people on the show here who work with cultural centers who really focus on the needs of people with disabilities. Uh, and one of the things that I've heard over and over again is being able to communicate expectations is so huge for those individuals and families that have that need. And so that kind of brings me to my next question, because I know that you are passionate about using technology to make arts more accessible. Can you share maybe some of those innovative examples on how these digital tools are helping us achieve these goals?
Mm. Well, so I don't only work with attraction. I also work with festival, museum, and all the cultural field. And I feel like to access the arts sometimes the main frustration and it's kind of a scary thing for some people to go to the arts. Look, I had the chance to grow up with theaters and music and this kind of thing, and it's not all the case for everyone, and some people are kind of afraid to take that leap and to go for the first time to an attraction, to a museum or to an opera. And the thing about marketing and communication is to make this first step a lot easier. I don't know if you know Audrey Bergaver. She's like a consultant. She used to be the executive director of the California Symphony, I think, and she really has a strong opinion about operas. So she used to be she mainly talk about opera and how people are afraid of going to the opera. And when they came for the first time, they go for the experience and then they never go back because they don't have the code. They go and they don't feel welcome. So the thing about accessibility and communication is to
Sure.
make people feel welcome in the arts. So I think it's really my job as a marketer in the art is really to make people feel welcome and giving them the code. And one of the questions I need to answer a lot is, do you need to go and to be dressed, well dressed when you go to the opera? Well, it's something you can say to your audience. Like someone is buying a ticket for the first time to your opera show, you can tell this person, no, you don't need to be the dress and like a super well dressed to come for the first time. And you don't need to say that to someone that is already your patron and come every year, but you need to say that to someone that came to the first time. And by giving them all the information they need and by making this experience smooth, you're going to make them repeaters and they're going to come back and then maybe become patrons and like feel the arts and love the arts.
Yeah, I love that because it's so much more than just data and
Mm,
marketing. It's actually like this is how we talk to our guests. It's how we communicate. And you're right. You don't need to tell somebody who's a fan of opera who's been coming forever what they need to wear.
yeah,
They're
exactly.
already aware of that, but you do have to take that special or and that separate moment to connect with somebody who's new so that they have expectations of what's going to happen. Because one of the things that I hear so often from families with people with disabilities is just that they're not sure where bathrooms are going to be. Like the unknown things about that first visit sometimes is what stops people from participating, like you said. And just having information and the right information, because the company or the attraction or the festival or whatever it is chose to acknowledge that you needed that information in order to make that a smooth visit. And I think that's where we're going for sure, is that with all of this data that we're collecting, we have an amazing ability to really personalize these experiences for people and give them the information that makes sense for them. Because I mean, there's so many times I get an email and you're right, it's not for me because I don't need it, so I don't even read it, right?
Mm,
And that's sad to say. I mean, I guess I should be reading everything, but it was meant for, like you said, maybe a different audience. My kids are in theater, so I watch a lot of shows, right? So I know what to expect, but somebody who's going for the first time, as you said, I think the number one question I get asked is, what do I wear?
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And
It's
then
a number one question.
right. And then I will say this too, when I take like the kids' elderly grandparents, oftentimes are like, is there going to be a seat close enough for me to get out in case I need to get to the bathroom fast or my legs start hurting or whatever that looks like, right? Because everybody's got a different need. So information is the only way that we can really accommodate in the best ways, I think. We actually we did a symposium at Cambridge University where we had different teams that ran early in January, different teams that ran through different scenarios of like what an experience would be like for people with who have no disability all the way to every type of disability to just mobility issues of the elderly, right? Which is pretty much where everybody is at some point, right? We're all going to go there. So I think it's a fair conversation to have about how can we make experiences good for everybody. And what was interesting to me is across all of those groups of people who have different experiences, different needs, the number one thing that every group came up with was communication.
Mm,
So I think what you're saying is so important. Do you know how to communicate with your guests?
yeah.
Right?
Communicating means making them feel like at home, like they know what's going to happen to them. It's going to be smooth, and there is no scary thing about going to an attraction into the theater, no frustration. And even if you don't have the answer to everything, and even if there is no bathroom near your plate, near your seats, you're going to know that and take that into account, and no surprises. And so it's going to make you feel at home, make you feel welcome, and at the end of the day, you're going to come back because you feel like you are like your expectation were meeting reality.
Right. Well, and here's the other thing, and we kind of talked a little bit about this before we came on air. Having worked in this industry for so long, even with when now, granted, this is going to date me a little bit, but in the days that I was implementing our software, and I had hundreds of attractions that I went to, everything from museums, zoos, water parks, you name it, hundreds of parks. And I heard so often, now granted, this was back in a time where we were moving people from machines to technology. So they were very scared of technology back then. I think we've overcome so much of that part. But one of the things that I would often hear from attractions is that they felt that their guest was having this kind of experience, or they felt that this was what was happening with the people who were there. And then we would put in a system like ours. And a year later, after we collected data, we're like, those feelings were totally off.
Mm.
And I think that's a hard pill for people to swallow. But at the same time, if you embrace this data, it's going to give you so many advantages, and it's really going to allow you to make better decisions for not only your business, your operations, but for your guests.
Mm.
And uh, I'm sure there are still a lot of attractions out there that are going off of feeling versus what is actually happening.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. I feel like something, and then you implement Arenametrix, and you get real data, and you sometimes realize they were it was right, their feeling was good, but sometimes it's completely off, and you realize 10 years of marketing strategy went to nothing because the target wasn't a good one. Like for instance, I work with an attraction, and they feel like the public were mainly from the region, like around the city, and realized not at all. It's got from all the states, and so the marketing was really not adapted to what was really coming. And when they start really addressing the real audience, addressing people that really were coming, and giving them the right information, like you don't address just the same way someone that live 1 kilometer nearby and someone that live halfway across the states. And so you don't give them the same information, you don't send the communication at the same time. You just really need to adapt everything. And once they get this information that they were not sending the right message because they were thinking, talking about people like locally, well, their audience from all the states, it changed everything. It really changed everything.
I believe it. I believe it. I mean, I've seen that happen. I believe it. When data tells a story, right? It tells a story, and we have a saying around here where it was like, data doesn't lie. People sometimes do, but data doesn't lie. Now, there is this situation, and this is why I'm glad that you're here, where oftentimes people don't know how to read the data or what to do. And that's why it's going to take people like you and companies like Arenametrix to help people really know how to navigate this. And we're running out of time. So I know that it's a big question to talk about segmentation. So maybe you have to come back on here because I think that's the big question around where people don't know where to go next. I hear that all the time. Like, how do I segment this out? Um, so you might have to come back because I want to, if you'll come back, I'd love to have you. But I want to address one more thing, and that is future trends and industry insights, because I think that that's something that that you can help our audience with right now, knowing that, what I'd love to know is your perspective on what are the most exciting trends in data-driven marketing for attractions, and how do you see these trends evolving over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah. One of the biggest trend for me is attractions going cashless. I work with festival, and I think festival are maybe a step ahead of attraction on this, because when you go to a festival, you get your bracelet and you pay everything with like your phone or your bracelet, and you don't have to go like take your cash or your card or anything. And I think attraction going to cashless is going to be like the big thing in maybe 5 years, because it goes hand in hand with a more seamless and data-driven experience, and it's really going to help attraction create a frictionless environment where transaction for food, for merchandise, for upgrades become faster but also trackable, because it's going to help venue collect even more data. And from a marketing perspective, that's absolute gold.
Yes.
If you are able to say like this guest enters the park at what time, and then eat was that food, and then went to this shop, like it's going to be absolute gold, and it's going to be really good for the venue, for the marketing, but also for the guests, because their experience is going to be a lot easier for them. So for me, that's going to be one of the big trends in the next year, is going like being really cashless.
It's interesting because cashless is something that we work with and have been doing for many years. Like, actually, we were one of the first water park systems to ever offer cash on account. And what's interesting about that, because if you just have a blind transaction, yes, we have all the data connected with the revenue and what was sold and all of that. But if you don't know who's buying what in a real time, like, I can't tell you how many times not only could we use that data for things that you're talking about, but let's just talk about safety.
Yeah,
First of
also.
all, having a cash control background, which doesn't really exist anymore. We talk about things that don't exist anymore because of technology and AI. Like, as we move into cashless systems, cash control becomes less and less of a need for attractions. And it's great because you know what? I'm not dealing with theft anymore as much as we used to. Like, if people understood how many theft cases I either found or got subpoenaed to be got subpoenaed to be part of the case, or the forensic data that we had to give them to be able to prove these cases. I mean, it was something in the early days of Gate Master. At least for me, I spent a lot of time dealing with theft, because people were used to machines that they could maybe manipulate, and then we would put in these systems, and again, talking about data where the data didn't lie, and people weren't used to that. But what I think is very interesting about cashless too is, in the same kind of vein of safety, is if somebody can look and see where you were last. So if you're trying to find a family member, right, because of this transaction data, now we also have, uh, and I'm sure people have seen it, you also have these fast pass where
Yeah.
people are checking in at the rides essentially. So it is to me, that's still a transaction. At least for us, when we're doing ride systems alongside their point of sale and everything's in one place, you can see like the exact. I'm sorry if you're a guest watching this, but we know where you go and how, when you eat and when you buy stuff and when you're riding a ride. But what I particularly appreciate about it is it's made our parks and attractions safer to have that data.
Yeah, much safer, and you can anticipate where people are going to go at lunch. And then since weight is like a big frustrating point for a lot of guests in attraction, you're going to be able to warn them, okay, to what we know, at 2 p.m. this part of the park is always crowded, so we advise you to go elsewhere. And so once again, you're going to be able to give them the right information, the information they need, and it's going to improve satisfaction. And once again, you can also, if you know where they are, you can maybe send a notification or a text message with the next boutique next to them, or like the next shop or the next place they can eat, and then again, like make some upsell and make them give you a little more money during their visits.
Yeah. Well, even I know there are systems in the ski resort space where you could all be on the same lift. And if you want to keep going, it just, there's a beacon that knows that you got a ticket on your phone and you just keep going. You know, the convenience
Mm.
is huge. Talk about knowing your guests, right? Like, I don't want to get off the lift, right? If I can just, I've already got a ticket, right? I don't want to get off the lift. I'm just going to keep going, and that's it's convenience. It's I think that's a big thing in the future we're going to see is that all of this data is going to make things far more convenient for our guests, and that's ultimately what's going to allow them to engage with us more and have meaningful visits and making more meaningful memories. So on that note, I want to thank you for the work that you do and what you're doing to help attractions be better at what they do, but also get to know the people. You know, there's nothing worse than a business that is so transparent that they don't know anything about you and you don't feel welcomed or you don't feel engaged with that business. In fact, you're probably not going to be a customer for that business for very long. And we don't want to see that happen to our attractions. So thank you for what you do and for being here today. And before I let you go, what would be the best way for our audience if they wanted to connect with you after the show? I know I want to connect with you after the show, but what would be, because I actually having this conversation with you, it's probably one of my favorite parts of this show, is realizing that I've got attractions that probably need your help. So
Well,
how can somebody get a hold of you?
Well, you can go to my LinkedIn account. I think I linked my LinkedIn account to this live. So Chloé Grossman, if you want to say it with an American accent. And yeah, and you can also go to the Arenametrix website and you can take a meeting with me from like make an appointment with me from the website also. So my LinkedIn and Arenametrix website.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Chloe, for your time today and being so generous with this information for our audience. I appreciate you sharing.
But thank you, Sondra, for having me. It was a really good
Of
experience.
course. Thank you. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, we need to finish this conversation about segmentation.
Yes, I agree. I was like, we're running out of time, but that is the one thing we get all the time. And I completely agree. So I'm glad you want to come back for that.
Perfect.
Take care.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Well, okay, first of all, we are going to have her back for the conversation on segmentation. I think we could probably do a whole show on that because that's actually my question for her too. We struggle with that here. I mean, it's a loaded one, right? A loaded question for somebody like her. But what I really love about the conversation today was the realization that when we collect data, you know, it's not this scary, maybe some people perceive it as like a big brother kind of thing. I don't know if that's the right thing, if there's another way to describe that, but like some people are afraid of data that's being collected on them, but ultimately, you know, when you use it for something really positive, like understanding the needs of your guests, how much it's going to help you improve experiences for your guests and allow you to engage with them on a more meaningful level. And I think that's really what we're discovering as technology and industry trends continue to move forward is the convenience that it gives them, but also the connection that it gives you to your organizations and all the good work that you guys are doing. So I hope you enjoyed this guest today because I sure did. Before I let you go, this programming is brought to you by Gatemaster Technology. And I have been asked to share with you all a interesting and new promotion that we have here at Gatemaster, and that is our competitive replacement program. We know that there are a lot of attractions out there who are not happy with their technology and they need help in this area. They need to improve, they need to upgrade their systems. And because of that, we've looked at what the needs that you have are. And a lot of you need to just replace the system without a huge added cost. You need an upgrade. You need information. You need people who are experts at what they do. So we're trying to make this really, really easy on you. And if you are interested in a competitive replacement program, I would love you to book a discovery call at Gatemaster Technology because we want to help you get there. We want to help you achieve your goals. We want to help you achieve the measurable metrics that let you know that your system is successful and working for you, and that what you're doing is the right move. Getting you some of this data that you're going to need to better communicate with your guests, to have better, meaningful conversations with them about your experiences that you're offering, and then also tracking things the way that we talked about on this show. I mean, there's so many advantages to that, and I would love for you to meet with myself or my team, and we can talk about that. And at this point, I don't know how long this competitive replacement is going to last. It's something that we've brought back from years ago, and it was super successful in helping attractions and this industry upgrade. I want you to know that that means that we're basically going to switch your system out for whatever you're paying right now. So give us a call or book a discovery call. You can hit that QR code just above me, and we'll get you set up with a techspert on our team that's going to help you navigate that. So this is Live with Sondra, and I want to thank you for watching today. I want to thank the team that helps put this show together, for Gatemaster, who sponsors this show so that you can have content, and guests like Chloe helping you understand a little bit more about the business that we do here in attractions. I appreciate you taking the time to watch today, and we will see you soon. Take care, everybody.